Hassan wasn't sure if she was a prisoner. She wasn't free to leave the storeroom, but the money, food, and gainful employment kept on coming in. The army didn't have much choice, she figured. Since no one had come to take her away or recall her to the depot, the quarantine checkpoints were probably still closed. Not all that bad a thing. The white-painted concrete of the storeroom blocked out all sound from the aerodrome, and there was no shortage of reading material. Plus, the sneak to the hangar was short. She didn't get caught until her 4th run, the rings bearing another cipher all worn around her fingers in a makeshift brass knuckle. She didn't really plan to use it, and indeed the colonel making himself at home in the base wasn't fazed one iota as he snarked. Still, after a growly lecture in his bare office, she wasn't going back to her improvised cell. "The development of his strain has been compromised," he said. "We've been here before. He knows we're staging something, doesn't quite know what. Now I'm not about to pretend that this isn't your fault." Hassan tried to remain plain-faced as she speculated on how much the colonel knew. "What I am going to do is listen to what you said. With the situation being as it is, we might need to just tell him." "You want me to do it?" Hassan asked. "No, gods no, woman. I want you 1,000 miles from here, and as luck would have it, I have a ticket out of here with your name on it." "The quarantine got lifted." "If you're gonna keep asking questions, we're gonna be here a long, long time," the colonel burst out. Hassan looked at the ground and waited. "It's safe enough when the mist is active. I've contacted Eastcom. Checkpoints will let you through if you're fast. Get there before our man plugs the zombie hole." Hassan was forced to remain silent in the aftermath of this order. "Satellite's not got that much juice left," the colonel went on, now so utterly quietly it was like he was a different man. "It wears down. There's a zone on the... You know what I don't think you need to know. Bad timing, bad weather, no time to wait for either to change. We need to finish production before they do, and we need that fuel. Think you can do it?" Not entirely sure what she was claiming, Hassan agreed. The colonel walked her out to the landing strip, where her truck was still sitting where she'd left it. "What are you going to tell him?" she asked. "Not to kill himself before we're ready," the colonel snapped. "Don't even think about it anymore. Think about driving. Think about making it. And don't you think for a moment about anything you have to plow down on the road to make it. Probably nothing. Checkpoints are just out of control." "Can I take food?" Dear God, oh God, we're doomed. I can't say it enough," the colonel theatrically said, stomping back to his office. The soldiers around the hangars seemed to enjoy it. About an hour later, Hassan was in the cab of the truck. She guessed it had enough fuel to make it halfway to the depot. The checkpoints on the way were going to have to be very compliant indeed. She set off right on the dot of 10. It was just about dark enough to see the satellite drifting along, a white dot that looked like a stray planet. The UV rays it bathed the infection zone with were invisible, but the reddening of the air signaled the happiness of the Diomedian aeroplankton. If anything was outside the base walls looking for a human meal, it would be setting off to follow the current of plankton towards the vector. Hassan lamented the fate of the poor man as she danced around roadblocks and burned cars, not knowing how the regular migration had become something therapeutic for the vector. For a moment she saw something flash across the road, not touching the ground. It knocked over a tree and disappeared beyond the lights of the truck. There would come a time when they would all be like that. Just like the army wanted, she sneered to herself. It was a very strange end of the world, filled with hope that something much better was just around the corner. But round that corner too early, and it was going to be a flesh-eating beast that could find anything that breathes. Hassan found herself preferring to take the colonel's advice and just focus on the drive. First checkpoint had no fuel, but the soldiers let her pass. She saw bodies piled up just in front of their mudbag fort, and warned them that the mist might reanimate them. The soldiers shrugged. Hassan made a note that the checkpoint might not still be there for her return journey, and carried on east. Whatever was happening inside the body of that unlucky vector, she wished it would get on and save the world soon. I thought that fighting the zombies outside was going to keep my tower clean. Nope. And we already know why. Won the battle on night 21, but sure enough, on night 22 there must have been visitors. Doors were open, and the lobby was swarming with guests when I went down for my morning stroll. Was thinking of searching every building nearby to locate their new base, but that probably wasn't going to stop them making another one somewhere else. Strange thing was I never heard shooting. These Black Ops mad scientists weren't getting into as much trouble as me, I guess. Were they really moving the zombies around? Not the sort of thing you can do without the odd gunshot required here and there. Yep, I was an expert on zombie redistribution, and something didn't sound right about all this. I had a great solution. Eat, sleep, and stare religiously out the windows looking for movement. Thing was, they were probably hiding in a bush looking right back. Getting to sleep was hard enough already. Now I had another reason to rock back and forth on the couch hugging a shotgun all night. Life was good. Split my time between lazing around and sweaty bike rides through the silent city. Night 23 came up, mist came down. I was raring to go, wishing to try out the toys I'd collected from that military cache guarded by the Giga zombie. First thing was an electric turret that shot bits of metal with compressed air. I'd filled it with little screws and ball bearings. I set it on a wall across the street from the tower. It was a little three-legged box with a snout, air tank bolted on one side and a laser housing on the other. That was a motion detector. Basically, when zombies walked up near, the turret buzzed its snout around to face them, then spat out the crud at high speed. Nowhere close to the effect bullets had, but it sure sent them reeling, and I felt good to have someone watching my back. I was sitting there on the wall beside the turret, my face covered by Toy 2, night vision goggles. Didn't really need them, since the way the red mist shone slightly made these nights not especially dark. Felt cool though, for a while. Nice to see things looking green instead of red, I guess. Final toy was this tactical rifle I'd unpacked, but it was a disappointment. Magazines only held 5 rounds, and I didn't have many. It looked really cool though. Whatever, clearly I was entertaining myself, and it was going to take a bit of trouble to wake me up to the stupidity I'd sunk to. Came sure enough when I fell off the wall, then got my right leg absolutely clamped by a zombie dog. Its bite was super caninely strong, and I felt and heard that familiar crack of bone. I shot it off myself and hobbled through the horde to get inside. The turret was thumping away, but its next round of batteries were coming with me. Sorry, soldier. I should mention the changes I'd made to the tower. The main doors were now bricked up, with amateurishly mixed mortar to boot, leaving just a regular old service door to the side. Behind that I'd whipped up a low brick wall, which I now rolled across. With the imaginary safety of the other side achieved, I shot all my guns off at the zombies following me in. Bought myself a break, and tried to splint my bloody leg. I wasn't really worried. I'd had worse last week, and at the rate this bacteria was getting to grips with reanimation, I'd not only have a fresh leg by morning, but it would probably be stronger than steel, hopefully. In times like this, best thing to hope for is to be the one guy who mutates into a hero. No need to hope, I was pretty much there. Ended up forgetting the toys and just blithely shooting all visitors in the dim lobby. That's the way to do it. Try to have fun with your work and you mess it up. Head down, barrels up, just do what you're here to do, man. Looks like you can be your own boss and still think your boss is an asshole. I was just tired. And yep, after napping for like 2 hours in the morning, my leg was just scabs and bruises, could even walk on it. Was gonna be tap dancing again in time for the matinee. I wondered if that was the test. Get me beaten up and see just what it takes to kill someone who's huffed enough red mist to resurrect a mammoth. It wasn't quite that, which I knew for sure by the end of the day. Let's review my diary. I wasted the morning writing the word alive in bright red paint across the roof and putting together campfires to burn next to it at night. Long shot that any planes except that of my captors would come by. Spy satellite might see it, or something. Not the point. While admiring my work, the aforementioned plane came by real low, hardly higher than the tower, and dropped a crate a literal stone's throw away. I held my ground for about an hour, not wanting to appear too interested in their games, their handouts. Then I couldn't resist, and good thing I didn't. The crate was in, of all places, a little graveyard nestled between newer buildings. Many of the graves had holes leading down to open coffins, or had open coffins with holes leading to the surface, I should say. Was a skeleton enough for the bacteria to rebuild you? Surely not, I thought, but what the hell did I know? Shot a few things that moved, and opened the box, ready to be pissed off by a load of empty space and insulting dinner suggestions. Nope. Thing was packed up high with stacks of smaller containers neatly tied together. On top of it all, a single piece of paper with a typed note, the page decorated with the FEMA logo. Snatched it up, and after a few formalities it read, "The work we are doing here is the last hope for this country. This bacterial infection has been taken the world over, and everyone's trying to make their own serums based on its effects. The first to succeed will take the world. The monsters in the experiment you are part of are only the beginning. You, brave citizen, might just be the end." Had to stop reading because I got mad again. Really thought they were about to get to the point when I saw the letter. That point being, here's when we're rescuing you, here's the unlimited bank account you get as compensation. Well, I don't know if bank accounts were still a thing. How about a machine that prints chips from Duke's Casino? There was more in the note. It said that I was helping to keep most of the zombies in the region near or inside the so-called infection zone. They were attracted to me because of something the writer, a colonel, said wasn't worth explaining. So they needed me here, and they needed me to stay alive for as long as possible. He said I would develop. Immediately I thought of the monster I'd seen recently. Seriously? Maybe Hassan really was looking out for me with that warning. Hard to say. Colonel said every injury, every ordeal made me stronger, and the stronger I was, the better chance there was to master the Diomedian bacteria. Okay, I was the chosen one basically, but it was going to take more than a single side of A4 to explain if it was anything to be happy about. I couldn't expect much more. The final part of the note said a break in the drops was coming up. "It's all or nothing, citizen. Please believe in your great and unfurling destiny," the colonel signed off. What makes this guy think I wasn't doing that already, huh? I understood. All or nothing. More like all and nothing. They get the all, I get the nothing. Not true, actually. My crate was packed with some less terrible army rations, loads of bullets, meds, water stuff, but most impressively, a huge gun. Oh yes. It wasn't an apology, but it was a real good start. It was a military sniper rifle, packed with a maintenance kit, 10 magazines, and a little training book with yellow tags on the relevant pages on how to use it. No scope, but I had a few of those in my collection anyway. Walked into a little mausoleum at the back and found a bullet sponge to test it out on. Huge kick, 12 shots, metallic, surprisingly quiet sound. Probably not top of the line, I didn't recognize the model at all from TV, yet it was a nice bribe. Would have to wait until tomorrow night to really take it for a spin. Went home with some hope in my heart to spice the confusion, and a whole load of supplies tied to the sides of my bike. So ready to develop, whatever that meant. Better brain would be good, maybe work out what's happening a little faster. Or remember to shut the door to the tower. Lobby was full of lost tourists. Sure, it's fun to shoot them, but then you've got to haul the bodies out for the sake of the aesthetic. I, like many homeowners, wished my property to be free of cadavers. Spent the next day erecting a barricade across the lobby just behind the doors, a wall of tables, chairs, and everything else I could be bothered to lug down the stairwell. Then I perused the various buildings on my street to bring stuff to barricade the entryway outside, although not especially well. I was no engineer, and while it would have been a great time to get qualified in my time off, I kinda knew that any flaws in my design could be solved with a pull of the trigger. That night I tried it out. Kinda worked. The wooden obstacles slowed down the visitors and tended to only let one or two at a time clamber into the lobby proper. There I sat at the reception desk, flanked by weapons, ammo, bandages, snacks, and a CD player blasting some electro hits of the 90s. Bet a child would think I was the coolest guy in the world. Not saying they'd be wrong, of course. Well, I won. Later in the night I found a neat little trick. Just above the doors was a ledge. I pulled myself up while standing on my barricades defiantly. I was strong, and the pull was easy. Developing, right? Almost hard to remember it happened so gradually, but my muscles were doing more than ever. Anyway, I perched on this ledge, couldn't stand up as it was right underneath the roof over the entryway, and watched the zombies try and fail to climb up and get me. Was genuinely quite similar to shooting fish in a barrel, with the flapping about and crack of wood. Not much happened for a while, then I returned to my ledge 2 nights later, now with the spread of guns and grub rolled up in a blanket to bring with me. Plus I set up my automatic crud turret up there, and it had a merry time flinging bits and bolts at the horde. My barricades were getting more and more wrecked, although that only made it harder for the zombies to get to me. They didn't have the strength, not the normal ones at least. Everyone develops different, huh? Was that why I was the special one? Or was that just because I was less dead than the rest? Was I less dead than the rest? Not that I felt sorry for my undead kin as I mowed them down with impunity, but still, to some extent we were all in this together. No need to get too upset over them, as the majority would be back on their adventures again after a quick nap, the way in which they and I were alike, in fact. The whole time I was keeping an eye on the dark depths of the streets. I thought that maybe, since that colonel seemed to be finally cluing me in, I might have the night fairies come by for the shoot. Nothing. They knew I knew about them, but I guess they had more they didn't want me knowing. I think the deal was that they were spying on me to make sure I kept drawing zombies in, or whatever exactly I was doing for them with this mist dance. And the reason they'd been smuggling zombies into the tower? Exercise. Yep, I think I had that right. They didn't want me to sleep the days away out of reach. They wanted me pumping guns, literally and figuratively, so that I would develop. Man, just couldn't get over that word. Wish he'd just have explained it. That was the other reason to look out for the fairies. Might be that they were gonna put me down the moment I looked like I was turning into a monster or whatever. Alternatively, I could embrace the monster and kill the fairies before their operation did God knows what to me and the world, hanging on outside the infection zone as they called it. Good to hear it's just a zone. This train of thought got a certain ball rolling. You see, if I was in a specified area where this whole experiment was happening, and presumably the army weren't, they must have been coming and going. That means there was a way out, and it probably wasn't that far away. Would they kill me if I tried to take it? Made me think of that Harpertown expedition, the journey of the old survivors. Made me think I'd quite like to see what the world was like outside of my zone. Would that be dooming the world? I kinda thought so that night. Next day I wasn't so sure. Slowly convinced myself the colonel wasn't really the one with my best interests at heart. In fact, he might have been the mad scientist behind the whole thing for all I knew. Well, at least he wasn't that, which I found out for sure when I decided to go for another bike ride on day 29. I had a destination in mind. Local map had a gunsmith in the Eastern District, and I was getting into collecting guns as a kind of hobby, you see. I had my expectations flawed, as per the standard. However, this time I wasn't the last guy to show up. The facility, in between the grumbling staff, had loads of weapon parts, ammo, and a couple of freshly worked pieces still partially stuck in the machines. Managed to extract for myself a pump-action shotgun and a brand new sparkling AK-47, the old classic. It was heavier, louder, and cooler than the overused Night Fairy AR, and had been modified to chamber the same cartridges as the rest of the American rifles. Someone was gearing up for trouble, but when your local gunsmith's on the turn, I guess it's too late. At least the poor workhorse was going to get a final blaze of glory with me. This wasn't the only time capsule quality of the Smith. Amid its generally not very looted state, I found a neatly arranged back office where someone had been pinning news articles to a corkboard on the wall. They were from a long time ago, about the time I'd had my fateful encounter with a bitey lizard or whatever it was. At a glance, it was hardly worth cutting out for the collection. Dry reports on the creation of bacterial fertilizer. Immediately I knew what this gunsmith was onto. They were monitoring a developing situation before it developed. A lucky conspiracy theorist, perhaps. Thinking about it, if your business is guns, you want to keep an eye on anything that might be marketable as a reason for the locals to gear up. Only the last article pinned had a real clue, where it mentioned that the stuff was performing strangely in trials and had been shut down suddenly by the CIA. Yes, perhaps this fertilizer leaked into a graveyard and... payday for the gunsmith, who then didn't live to finish their big contracts. It was all beginning to take shape in my head, and while it might not have been the correct shape, having anything at all was significant. It made me feel small. Even though I was the chosen one here, this entire situation was just a runaway train with a few wild officials still pretending to pull levers up front. Train might be going somewhere good. We just had to jump off at the right moment into dark thickets and smoky ditches. I didn't feel very good about it, basically. The more I thought, the more clear the answer became. I needed to have a sit down with my masters. I needed to reach the edge of my cage and know something about the world outside. Yes, I needed to follow the Underground Railroad and go to Harper Town.